Hey guys, so I've had the privilege to own every Pixel flagship device and I've loved every iteration despite the quirks. When the Pixel 5 was announced, I was a bit mixed on Google's decision to use mid-range specs. I mean, on paper, if you compare specs, the Pixel 5 seems worse than the Pixel 4 XL. It's got a lower resolution screen, an inferior processor and GPU, no neural core chip for faster image processing, and a body that's covered in a material that feels more like plastic than metal. Despite my assumptions, I decided to give it a fair chance. So, after using the phone for a few months, here are my thoughts on the Pixel 5. I want to start off by talking about performance. As I mentioned in the intro, the Pixel 5 has what many may call a mid-range processor and GPU. Based on benchmarks, it's closer to the Pixel 3 when it comes to raw performance. However, when it comes to real-world usage, it's pretty much impossible to tell that the phone is running on a mid-range processor. The phone runs very smoothly and handles pretty much every task without any sort of stutters. I must say that I don't game on my phone, so the experience might be a bit different for those who game a lot. The 8 gigs of RAM made sure apps didn't have to reload often, and the fast refresh rate of the screen made for a pretty pleasant experience. If I were to nitpick, I'd say the only time I noticed the phone didn't have flagship specs was when I took a bunch of photos and had to wait for the photos to process. To be honest, it's not something a lot of people are gonna notice. I do have concerns about the long-term performance though. I mean, right now it's running fine. As apps get more demanding over time, the phone has the potential to perform worse than the phones with high-end processors. Now, as somebody who prefers smaller phones, I love the Pixel 5. It's super light and comfortable, and the size is great for one-handed use. I'd say size-wise, it's closer to the iPhone 11 Pro, but thinner and much lighter. In terms of materials, the phone's back is made from recycled aluminum with cutouts for wireless charging. In terms of durability, it's fantastic. I don't have to worry about cracking its back, but when it comes to in-hand feel, it doesn't feel like metal because of this bioresin coating. So if you associate quality with the cold feeling of metal and glass, you might think it doesn't feel as premium, and that's a fair critique. I wish Google went for brushed aluminum like the first Pixel or HTC M7 or 8. To be honest, I don't really mind it at this price because the pros outweigh the cons in my opinion. Also, I kinda like how grippy this phone is due to the bioresin texture. It's not really gonna slip out of your hands pretty easily. The screen is absolutely beautiful. The resolution has downgraded to 1080p though, but due to the smaller size, I can't really tell the difference. It looks plenty sharp and there is no pixelation. Also, this is one of the only phones with a perfectly symmetrical bezel. It doesn't seem like a big deal at first, but I really appreciate that attention to detail. The 90Hz refresh rate is amazing. It makes everything look fluid, and I think that feature alone is worth it over the Pixel 4a XL. As I mentioned in my Note 20 review a few months ago, the difference between 60 and 90 Hz is pretty significant, but not that much between 90 and 120 Hz. So most users would be pretty happy with the 90 Hz refresh rate. Now, it's not all perfect though. Auto brightness on this phone is not great. Sometimes it lowers the brightness for no reason, which forces me to manually adjust the brightness every time. One of the biggest reasons to get the Pixel 5 is the battery life. It's easily the longest lasting Pixel flagship in my experience. I can easily go on a full day with this and not have to worry about charging at all. The Pixel 4 XL in comparison barely made it to the end of the day. In terms of screen on time, I'm constantly getting between 6 to 7 hours on a full day of use with a bunch of standby time baked in. I'm currently daily driving the S21 Ultra, and I'd say the battery life of the Pixel 5 is very close to the S21 Ultra, which is amazing. Now the camera is one thing that I'm slightly disappointed by. Don't get me wrong, it still is one of the best cameras out there, but it's pretty much the same camera as the Pixel 4 line. Google has been using the same camera since the Pixel 3, and improvements have only been incremental since then. The Pixel phones have been popular because of the camera quality, and I think Google is starting to lose that advantage. In terms of quality, I'd say it's currently a number 3. I do appreciate that Google added a wide-angle camera this time, but it's not as wide as you would get on a Galaxy or an iPhone. I would love to see an even wider wide-angle camera and a zoom camera in the next Pixel. The new software features are also helpful this time. For example, I like that I no longer have to get into night sight each time when needed. It automatically switches to it, similar to Apple, and for those who don't like it, Google has now added the option to turn it off. Also, Google has added the ability to take portrait shots with night sight, which is pretty sweet. And there is no face unlock this time. I think the Pixel 4 XL face unlock was just as good as the iPhone's, but in a pandemic-hit world, fingerprint is better than face unlock in my opinion. The placement's great, and the circular design provides a big enough surface area. It works flawlessly, and it's super fast. And in my experience, it actually works better than the S21 Ultra. And Google removed a couple sensors this time. First, there's no Soli, which I don't really mind. I don't really think it was implemented that well on the Pixel 4 XL. The technology is pretty interesting. So I do hope that Google brings it back at some point when the tech is better. And there is no squeeze functionality for Assistant. Although I rarely used it, it was pretty good to have for fast access to the Assistant. The gesture replacement, in my opinion, is just not that good. When the phone came out, pretty much everyone bashed the speakers. So I was expecting the speakers to be horrible. To be honest, they're not as bad as the reviews made me believe. I've had no issues taking calls or watching content. Yes, when comparing side by side to an iPhone or a Galaxy phone, you can tell the difference, and you can tell the sound is not as rich, but it's not nearly as bad. Also, the update in December definitely improved the quality with adaptive sound. And my last point is on the haptics. The vibration motor is just not as good as the Pixel 4 XL or the iPhones. The iPhones are absolutely the gold standard, and no Android phone comes even close. I think the Pixel 4 XL had one of the better vibration motors, so it was a bit sad to see the motor wasn't that good on the Pixel 5. It might not be a big deal to you, but I think a good vibration motor makes a huge difference. So I really hope Google improves that in the next generation. Overall, I think the Pixel 5 is one of the most well-rounded phones Google has ever made. The price, while slightly higher than I would like it to be, is not too bad, and the user experience is flagship level despite the mid-range specs. If you have a Pixel 4, I don't recommend getting it unless you want the better battery, but if you have an older Pixel, I think it's a pretty good buy. Thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe for more photography and technology content.